Hello, folks, and welcome to the Open Air Insane Asylum. I'm Lewis Wallace, your guide, and today we're going to be taking a look at this chap right here, Clavicular. Now, it's no exaggeration to say that this guy's been absolutely everywhere of late. In fact, if you're a young guy, unless you've been literally living under a rock, there is no chance that you have even been able to go near a telescreen, a screen, a browser, whatever, without being bombarded by this guy's face. And this has been going on for about 6 months or more. Haven't been able to get away from this chap. Okay, look, Twitter is unusable on a good day. But there was a point there where it got so obscene that maybe every second thing on that app for me, and I know a lot of other people, because I didn't want to see this, was Clavicular. Clavicular gets mobbed by whatever. Looks Max, all this stuff, and I just had to turn the whole thing off. And now, very recently, it's come out, and they're saying that his streaming site, Kick, which is an Australian company, folks, it's always the Australians. Australians run the world, obviously. Kick paid for this promotion. Basically, what they did is they hired a bunch of Indians to clip his streams and then distribute them all over social media, and those guys got pittance. But this is all paid stuff. But what I really want to talk about is not that. That's not the only thing going on here. Now, for what it's worth, this is my opinion. You don't have to agree, but I don't think that it's an accident that this guy has been able to be promoted in this kind of way. I mean, this promotion is not organic in the slightest. And I remind you that he hasn't just been featured on social media, on alternative media, on Kick. Okay, this guy has gone very mainstream very quickly. He was interviewed on 60 Minutes here in Oz. He is being talked about endlessly in the mainstream press. So he's not just being forced upon your feed against your will, inorganically. He is being beamed into the brains of boomers, alright? And the old maxim's true. Remember the old maxim. No publicity is bad publicity. So I look at this, and I think, what are they selling? Because something's being sold. Something's always being sold, folks. Particularly when someone's allowed to accrue billions of views, billions of impressions all over the internet. Nothing gets this big unless something's being sold. So let's just do a quick recap, shall we? Let's do some of the history. Nobody had heard of this guy until last year. 2025. His hard launch, I would argue, and this is kind of sus, was when the already very famous Top of the Pops, Nick 56%, went on Clavicular's show and then kind of kicked some of his followers over. Because that was a tacit endorsement, really. That was probably, I don't know, mid to late, maybe September last year. I couldn't find it, actually. But at the height of Fuentes Mania. And then there was that stupid meetup in Miami, I guess like January this year, where he met with Fuentes and the whole cohort of, I don't know, what do you call them, right-wing charlatans? Andrew Tate and his brother, Sneeko, inshallah, former DEA agent Myron Gaines. And I'll tell you why this matters. These people are all suspect. Take Fuentes, right? He is allowed to get out there, to really get in front of actual, call it what you will, nationalism, nativism, identitarian, white advocacy, America first ism. He's allowed to get in front of that. I would argue to cock it up, but that's a whole other thing. Okay, Fuentes too, very suspiciously for a so-called white nationalist, has been featured in the mainstream media. He had a feature story on him in the New York Times. They let him on Tucker Carlson, Piers Morgan. And let's not forget, I think late last year, he got very popular on Instagram, all that stuff. I think he even had the top podcast in the world for a minute. That, as if that would just happen, unless someone wanted him there. I would say he's even replaced David Duke, who used to be the media-approved white nationalist, the white nationalist that could get interviewed in the New York Times. But it doesn't matter. That's besides the point. Suffice it to say that this is an op. This is an op because everyone around him is involved in probably some kind of three-letter agency or some kind of operation. Anyway, all these creatures, all these individuals got together and they all throw up a Roman salute. Wow, all these, amazing. A portent of Hitler's return, I guess. So, there's a lot going on. But I'll just say this for now. They're positioning him in a market. Alright? Clavicular is being positioned in a market. And keep that thought. And now, stop the press! Oh, sorry, but stop the presses! They're saying that this Clavicular chap is an early lifer. So there's some clip where this club owner he's supposed to be in business with outs him as an ethnic Zionist.
Yeah, well, you're American.
Yeah?
What does that mean? He's
so
Jewish.
You probably don't.
You're Jewish.
Like, what? Yeah?
What does that mean? He's
so
Jewish.
You probably don't.
You're Jewish.
Like,
But I don't want to get bogged down in that. I don't want to get bogged down in that stuff, folks. If you're asking, is he a Gentile or not, you're asking the wrong question. But there's more. This is where it gets more interesting, in my opinion. So, when these individuals got together and did in Miami, and they did this Sieg Heil, whatever, they did this crap. He apologized to a rabbi for that. And as I said, now he's in business with like an Israeli club owner. And you've got I think this is where it gets into slop turf, but he's got some ex-girlfriend out there saying he's been turned, and that he's got to, I don't know, kiss the ring, kiss the wall, whatever. But all of this is to say that he's part of a milieu. A Zionist milieu, even. And perhaps more importantly, he seems to be tied to Peter Thiel. The Antichrist himself, folks. I just get money to Twix. Okay. So he's allegedly, folks, he was invited to a Peter Thiel party. You can probably imagine what happens at a Peter Thiel party. And according to some, Peter Thiel is the mysterious megadonor that started bankrolling his lifestyle. And remember, he wasn't anybody. He's what? He's 19, 20 now. So when he started this, he was just out of school. And, of course he had money given to him. So it looked like it was probably Peter Thiel. Allegedly, folks. And famously, Mr. Clavicular, he got very upset at a journalist who dared to ask about the Peter Thiel ties. That's well documented. So what the hell's going on here? Well, we're going to have to take another step back and appreciate some of the context, I think. This is important, folks. this chap didn't just come out of nowhere. He came from, Clavicula that is, came from the manosphere, the manusphere, if you will. And he is, you guys, some of you guys probably are well aware of this. So he's just mainstreaming stuff that has been talked about in the manusphere for more than a decade now. It's the obsession with facial analysis, the reduction of everything to looks, few millimeters of bone, whatever. It's the gender realism, call it what you will, terminology like looks maxing, void, all that stuff. You could even go as far as to say that Mr. Braden Peters, that's his real name, Clavicula, is a coalescence of all of these manusphere subgroups into one person, one avatar, if you will. For what? Well, we'll get to that, okay? The manusphere, I would argue, started with a lot of younger guys on forums in the 2000s, 2010s, trying, I think, to figure out women and feminism. There were different motivations for being there. Some wanted to optimize their lives and help their chances with women. Some wanted to commiserate with other men. Some wanted to figure out what the hell's going on with this in this world, with women, with modern feminism. Some, no doubt, wanted a political solution to feminism and divorce courts in men's rights or something like that. That never went anywhere. It started with guys like Rouge V. Do you remember Rouge V? I wonder where he is now. Trying to come up with like a complete systematic scientific method for banging women overseas. And then there were guys like Molyneux. Yeah, Molyneux, I think, came out of this. Those who remember him, I mean, if you're too young, you won't, but they were talking about the political aspects of this. He had his little PowerPoint presentations about divorce and gender dimorphism. So, that's to say, people had their separate motivations for being there. But I think overall, the whole thing was a byproduct of a reaction to modern feminism, the third wave of feminism. And I think most manosphere guys would actually probably agree with that. That's probably the main thing they agree on. But the thing is, this manosphere, this reaction to feminism, and I'm not making a judgment on it, I'm just talking about it, was that people who entered it for the anti-feminist stuff, they kept off-ramping to these offshoots, these subgroups like MGTOW or Inceldom. And here lies the kicker. There's no money in that. There's no money to be made if men go and become incels or MGTOW. Okay, MGTOW told guys, drop out and do your own thing in life without women. Inceldom keeps people doomsaying about their own life, their own prospects. It's this self-fulfilling prophecy of doom. I'm not endorsing that stuff. And so people who off-ramped don't really make the capitalist system any money. In fact, they probably go and live pretty Spartan lives without women. And the system, the capitalist can't have that. Feminism, on the other hand, and this is a tangent, but it matters. Feminism means more money for the system elites. Feminism is a capitalist ploy, folks. Yes, I'm serious. Gloria Steinem took money from the CIA. Look it up. Feminism says, unhitch women from all male accompaniment, give them a lazy girl job, let them buy whatever they want, and bet how much consumer spending do women make up? Women make up 70% of all consumer spending. And it's not just on food and clothes for their kids. Women spend. Why? Because they're neurotic. Women spend on clothes, on makeup, on pharmaceutical drugs because they're neurotic. And yes, on things like plastic surgery, the beauty industry, all that stuff. But men are left out of this equation on a normal day. If men are buggered, if men ascertain that they're just buggered in the dating market, like because they're in the manosphere, men are going to drop out of dating in the droves. And if men are eschewing university degrees, men are eschewing elite status because they can't get it. Okay, if all men become semi-incels or incels who have no real prospects with women, they're not going to spend money. Again, men are Spartan by nature, and without women or family, men don't need anything. Look at every divorced guy, single guy. I mean, they don't really need much. So I believe that they've got to give men some kind of reason to start spending again, to get back in the saddle. And that is where Clavicular comes in. He is this faux savior of young men, and he's adopted all of the manosphere language, right? He got his whole worldview basically from the manosphere, from inceldom, from the looks maxes, from the anti-feminists. He says, men, you're suffering under this feminism, gynocentrism. You're oppressed, even. You're not doing well. And there's a reason for that. There's a solution to that. Fix your looks. Looks max. Ascend, as it were, in the lingo. He shows up, alright, to give young, impressionable guys with no prospects and nothing to lose something to aspire to. And the beauty of it too is it's a quick fix, right? It's a quick fix. Just fix your jawline. Just fix it. Don't develop. Just fix this. They don't. Yeah, and also it works because young men ultimately don't believe. Gen Z men do not believe they're going to make it in business or politics or academia or any other system necessarily. Because those jobs are reserved for women, frankly, a lot of them, and minorities. But he's telling you it's okay, because you just need to win at this looks maxing thing. Or perhaps people who are sort of semi-incel think that they need to looks max just to get in the game. And I'll tell you, it's a brilliant ploy, because it means that they've essentially co-opted what was more or less an organic movement in the manosphere and funneled all of its adherents into Clavicular's ecosystem, which again is inorganic. And Fuentes and Andrew Tate and the rest really helped with that. They really built up the foundation for that too. This is a classic elite tactic that I've seen many times before. You probably have too. Whenever people start organically thinking up their own ideas, coming up with their own movements, whatever, what the elite do is they put their own people into those ecosystems, into those markets. They get ahead of them. They get ahead of the game and they take control there. All right? And yes, there's lots of money involved. There's going to be so much money to be made from men. Now, you tell them their looks are the cause of all their woes, and they're going to spend to fix it. All right? Feminism worked well because it delivered all those neurotic female consumers to the capitalist. And this new project makes men neurotic about their looks, so they'll pay for the treatment, delivers them right into the hands of the capitalist, of the banker. And Peter Thiel, undoubtedly, he's a venture capitalist. He's probably invested in all of this stuff, all right? Yes, it's about money at the end of the day. It's social engineering too, don't get me wrong. but it's about money. And clavicular, just look at it. Clavicular is soft promoting all of these strange methods. Peptides and testosterone injections. Meth are the drugs. And undoubtedly surgery too, because I'm pretty sure he's said he's got the jaw surgery. And look, we could talk about the individual merits of some of these methods. And that's fine. But this guy clavicular is self-admittedly sterile because he's been on testosterone injections since he was 14 years old. This is your masculinity coach, folks. This is your masculinity coach. And for anyone that wants to rebut this and say it's not about money, it's about self-improvement, bro. Look, there might be something to some of these things. There might be something to mewing, natural orthodontic methods for facial change. But the truth is, okay, those are not available to men in their 20s or later. You have to do that stuff in adolescence if you're going to do it at all. So yes, I think they're selling you jaw surgery. And anyway, you look at all, when does it stop, right? Because you look at all these neurotic women who go for plastic surgery in LA, in Korea, whatever. And do you think these people who get a surgery, do you think they're ever satisfied with how they look? Is it ever just a rhinoplasty or just jaw surgery? No, they get hooked and they keep going under the scalpel, and that's where they want you to. That's where they've done it to a lot of women, and they want to do it to men. Because thus far, yeah, I've never met a man who's done any of that stuff. So yeah, the manosphere, which started as the backlash against feminism, is now being turned by the capitalist to serve the same purpose as feminism, which is money. Which is money, folks. Ironic, isn't it? There's a whole big market of young guys out there who aren't spending any money on cosmetics, on surgeries. And so now they're going to normalize that stuff with looks maxing. And note, and as I said, and that's why I set that stuff up at the beginning, because notice how they're using clavicular to sell that stuff, right? Clavicular, who was already positioned out of the gate in that sort of quasi-right-wing masculinity sphere. He was there to spin the manosphere's talking points to make a brilliant money spinner for the billionaires, for the mega rich folks. It's marketing 101. And I have to give it to them. It's kind of brilliant, because in 5 years, I'm telling you, this will be a multi-billion-dollar industry. Every third guy under 30 is going to have some major work done. I'm telling you, folks. Look, there's a real dearth in positive masculine role modeling. But I've been around long enough to know that these people are not your leaders. They're going to send you off a cliff. All right? Peter Thiel, I don't know if humanity should exist. Peter Thiel, this cokehead, allegedly, is one of these anti-aging freaks who, and you look this stuff up, he's apparently one of these people, he's produced a small army of surrogate children that he's raising with his husband. And I'm not judging, but this is hardly a normal masculine role model. Mr. Clavicular, is a drug addict who has literally sterilized himself folks. He, by the way, like the vice president and the president, wears makeup. Okay, and people can do that if they want, I guess. But go and ask a bunch of guys on a building site what they think of that. Yeah, go and do that. And in the final analysis, I don't know what the solution is. I'm not going to patronize you and say, just develop a personality, bro. But know this. As a woman in this life, you can get by just for being, just for existing. But as a bloke, you actually have to do something. So looks only count for so much. And I'm just sitting here wondering, what happened to Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type? Alright, I'm done. Thanks.